Hello and welcome. This is Matthias Müll for marmoworld.com, and in this After Effects tutorial I want to show you how to work with pins and boxes effectively if you have a complex project that you want to split into individual precomps. So here I've got a very basic sample, and let's say this shape layer here, we want to move it in a precomp, but we still want to have some pins for it that we can use in our main comp. So let's precompose this here. And when we are precomposing, we have several options of doing it, right? You can either leave all attributes in the main comp. Let's try this one first. This is not ideal. You can see it gets blurry here because I had collapse transformation enabled for this one and it was scaled up, so now it's very blurry. It has the advantage that we have here a nice bounding box around our layer. So when we now create pins, the pins are exactly attached to this actual layer. Now let's undo this, undo the precomp, and let's try to create a precompose again, this time with a move all attributes to the new composition settings. Now we get a precomp that has the same size as our main composition. Yeah? So if we enter the precomp, you can see it has the same size. And this also means that when we are creating pins for this layer in the main composition, these pins are at the boundaries of the precomp layer, because in After Effects, this is how precomps are working. Like these pins cannot look at the alpha channel of this layer here. They just see the bounding box, and the bounding box of this layer is that large. So this is probably also not what you want. And a third option you have for precomposing that is actually pretty nice, so let's undo our precomp again, is in our extension Squash and Stretch Pro, and there's also a free version of this that also has this functionality. This Squash and Stretch is about an entirely different topic. It's about automatic animation, but one extra feature it has hides behind this button here, and it's called Precompose and Crop to Content Size. And if we select our layer and click this button, you see that you get a precomp that has exactly the right size and is not blurry. So now you could create your pins and they stick correctly to your layer. The only problem is that if we change the content inside of this precomp, let's say we scale this down again, then the pins still are pinned to the entire size of your precomp because they are not aware of what content is exactly inside of here. So what you really want to have instead is pins that are connected to the content inside of your precomp, and you can do this actually too. So let's undo everything again and create again our precomp that has the same size as the main composition. So we select it, say layer, precompose, say move all attributes in the new composition, and now we have a composition that has the same size as our main comp. And now we go inside of the precomp and create pins for this layer inside of the precomp. I shift click here on the pins button because I do not just want to select the pins I want to have, but I also want to make sure I enable this button, and this is this checkbox. And this is really crucial because this says I want to copy these pins to another comp, which is usually not possible that easily if you don't enable this. We click on OK, get those 4 pins, and now since we enabled this checkbox, we can just say edit cut, go back to our main comp and say edit paste. And now we have our 4 pins in the right location inside of our main comp. And if we go in the precomp and move the location of this and maybe also scale it up a bit or whatever, we go back in our main comp and the pins in our main comp updated accordingly. So bottom line here is, if you have a precomp that has the same size as your main composition, you can create pins in the precomp and then copy or cut and paste those pins from one of the comps to the other. And everything works fine as long as they have the same size and are aligned in the same way. So if we start moving the precomp here, I move the precomp layer in my main comp, you can see the pins are not moving with it because they are expecting somehow that the precomp and the main comp are in the same position. So this is the limitation you have. But apart from this limitation, this is a good way to create pins in one comp that are linked to content in another comp. Okay, now you could think, well, then I can always enable this checkbox to create always pins that I can easily copy from one comp to another, just in case I will need it later, but it has also some drawback. So let me get rid of this precomp here entirely and get rid of those pins. And let's say we want to just create some pins for this text here in our main composition. I shift click and create here some pins. And now let's say we enable this, although we don't really want to copy our pins. So now we have our pins and they work as usual. The only problem is that these pins are now prepared to be copied to another composition, which means they don't say, I belong to the Precomps text in my composition where I live in, but they say, I belong to the Precomps text in the composition with the name main comp, because they need to know this comp name in order to still work when they are copied to other comps. And this means when I duplicate my main comp, I have here now, let's call this other comp, and let's open this one. And now in this other comp, let's move our text layer. Then you can see that those pins are not moving with it anymore because they are not linked to this text, but they are hard-coded to always stick to the text in the composition with the name main comp. Yeah? So the main difference of what happens when you enable this checkbox here is that the pins are not referring to elements in the current comp anymore, but to a comp with a specific name. And this means you can easily copy those pins to other compositions and they still won't break. But it also means that when you start duplicating a composition, they will still point to the original. And this means the pins in the duplicate will still point to the contents of the original composition and not to the contents of the duplicate. This is the trade-off you have whether you should or not enable this checkbox here. So I hope this gives you a good idea how to work with multiple compositions with pins and boxes. Again, I'm Matthias for mamoworld.com and I'm looking forward to see you in the next tutorial.